The Bible promises the return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel. In fact, there are more references to that promise than there are of the coming of the Messiah. Ever since the dispersion of the Jews from the land of Israel in the 1st and 2nd centuries, Jews worldwide pray 3 times a day to return to the land. At the conclusion of the Passover Seder and Yom Kippur, Jews declare, "Next year in Jerusalem." Throughout the ages, a small number of Jews did return, and there was always a remnant in the land, holding on to the great promise of the return. But even by 1881, there were only about 25,000 Jews present. And then they came. Waves in the 1880s, early 1900s, 1920s, and 30s, and then in ever larger numbers following the Holocaust. Today, there are 7.2 million Jews in the land, making it the largest Jewish community in the world and comprising almost 50% of world Jewry. The establishment of the nation of Israel and the return of the Jewish people to the land is the greatest testament to God's reality and faithfulness in the modern era. And the fact that Jews from around 150 nations somehow melded together to form a vibrant and prosperous society is something to behold. But in contrast to a famous hymn, "All is not well with my soul." Throughout the nation's first 25 years, it successfully fought 4 wars that threatened its very existence. Following that period, the nation made peace with its mortal enemy, Egypt, and later Jordan. From innovations in agriculture to high tech, the country became a type of light to the world. But something fundamental was missing. This is how the prophet Ezekiel describes it. "For I will take you out of the nations. I will gather you from all the countries and bring you back into your own land. I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean. I will cleanse you from all your impurities and from all your idols. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit in you and move you to follow my decrees and be careful to keep my laws." Israel today is not living out this text. From being captives in the nations, it's become an overlord of another nation, the Palestinian people, in the territories, something akin to Jim Crow in the American South. Its government is corrupt and militant. Its society divided. A growing percentage of its population, the ultra-Orthodox, refuse to serve in the army. Most do not work, but rather demand welfare from the rest of the people. Government policies led to the growth of terrorist organizations on its borders. And then the unthinkable happened. A readily foreseeable but ignored threat materialized into the greatest slaughter inside Israel's borders in its history. Under the constant gaze of Israel's censors, the terrorist organization Hamas built an underground army and fortress. Israel responded with fury, demolishing most of Gaza to defeat Hamas. Tens of thousands, including many civilians, have been killed. But today, Israel seems no closer to a resolution than before the war. Most of the hostages captured by Hamas remain captive. Where the international community initially sympathized with Israel's plight and supported Israel's initial response, that same community now condemns Israel's aggressive response and seeming apathy to its destruction in Gaza. As a consequence, campuses throughout the U.S. and other places have exploded with vitriol against Israel's aggression, in many cases calling for its destruction, not realizing that its destruction would amount to another Holocaust. To reverse this situation, Israel must respond quickly instead of digging in its heels. Number 1, it must propose a plan for some form of Palestinian sovereignty. While it may seem as a concession to Hamas, rather it would regain the moral high ground and rid itself of occupying a people that hate its occupation. Number 2, Bibi Netanyahu must resign and be replaced by someone with popular support, even if it's a caretaker government. As former U.S. President Harry Truman said, "The buck stops here." Netanyahu has been prime minister almost continuously for 15 years. If there's anyone responsible, it's him. Number 3, radical government ministers such as Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir must be replaced immediately. Their actions led and continue to lead to unrest in the territories, which may have been a contributing factor to the government and military being unprepared by the October 7th disaster. Number 4, a temporary military government should be formed over Gaza with a plan to gradually transfer governing responsibility to an internationally recognized body similar to the earlier British or United Nations mandates over Palestine. Ideally, this body would be comprised of Arab state representatives such as Egypt, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. While the Palestinian Authority could be included in such a body, it should not be given sole responsibility. It does not have the credibility and even the ability to manage such a massive reconstruction effort. Number 5, a commission should be formed to investigate the catastrophic failures around the October 7th terrorist attack. Bibi Netanyahu should have no role in such a commission except as a witness. Number 6, a new election must be called at the earliest practicable time. And number 7, another commission should be formed to examine and make recommendations concerning the nation's governing documents. The current structure is badly flawed, leading to the massive protests over several months prior to the war and distracting the country while Hamas openly planned its attack. Ideally, the commission would recommend Israel establish a real constitution with individual rights protected. Of course, the transformation to the people of Israel that the prophet Ezekiel foresaw still remains to be fulfilled. It's the only permanent solution. This can only come through prayer and preaching the gospel. But in the meantime, changes can be made in society that more closely align with a biblical framework. As the scriptures say, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Finally, don't forget my new book on Amazon, How Politics Has Distorted the Gospel.